and welcome to another Arsecast Extra, as always, with James from Blog. Good morning to you, James.
Morning, Andrew. How you doing?
I'm all right. Sorry, I want to do that intro again. Hello and welcome to another Arsecast Extra, as always, with viral sensation actor James McNicholas.
Yes, thank you very much. I've gone viral again, but in a nice way. I haven't done anything wrong.
That's good. That is good. It is nice when virality does not come with all the madness and nonsense.
There's been plenty of madness and nonsense, don't get me wrong. But so far I'm relatively unscathed from the experience.
Yeah, so to explain, part of the reason why we have been recording on Sundays of late is because you are filming.
Yes.
Which is where you're getting all these incredible costumes for your dramatic reading of pop songs from the not too distant past.
Basically, yes. Yeah. I think the sweet spot for me is kind of early noughties, sort of a slight retro feel to it. But yeah, I don't know. I did one as a sort of thing to amuse myself because that's what I do in my spare time. And yeah, they've gone quite crazy. It's like, you know, I've got all these new Instagram followers, Andrew. Suddenly I'm worried, you know, just pictures of my breakfast aren't going to cut it anymore.
No, you've set the bar high, you see. They've come for the good stuff, for the Gnarls Barkley, and I particularly enjoyed the Eiffel 65 one.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that's actually done the lowest numbers, but I'm glad that you like it.
I'm niche. You know, my tastes are.
You've got more of a cultivated take on it. But if you don't know what we're talking about and you are remotely interested, I guess they're all on my Instagram page. So yeah, go and have a look. But it's been quite weird because normally on the internet, when I've had things blow up or get a lot of attention, it's been connected to football generally. I mean, usually something pretty stupid connected to football, but this is sort of a bit different. So yeah, it's been nice. It's actually been quite nice. It sort of feels like, you know, you think of the internet and you think of trolls and, you know, mean comments and baiting and all that stuff, but actually people have been quite nice.
That's good. People should be nice. Nicer in general, I think. Well, nice people are nice all the time, really. It's just the pricks that are wankers, if you know what I mean.
True.
That's a rule to live your life by. It's the pricks that are wankers, you know?
Yeah. So it's been surreal. Like I've been sort of waking up every morning and sort of looking at my phone and it'll be like, oh, this film star's liked your video. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and I'm
yeah.
This is a weird world that I'm existing in right now, and it's a bit of a whirlwind, and I'm conscious that the internet being the internet, it will pass just as quickly as it came in.
Yeah, there's a tipping point, isn't there? You know, you've got to find the right moment to sort of leave that thing as a gem that existed, and everyone went, oh, remember when James did that? That was really cool. And then he went and like he went too far. He did exactly. He did Pretty Fly for a white guy. And it just went too much there.
Like Icarus, he flew too close to the sun.
Exactly. The hubris.
Yeah, exactly. And you've got to judge that carefully. And I don't really know. But I look forward to the turning point. I look forward to when the internet turns on me again. I'm sure that will be... They're building me up to knock me down.
3 days from now, it's not as good as it used to be.
If I survive 3 days, I think I've done well. The comments will be things like mid. You fell off.
Yeah. Washed.
A lot of that.
Washed actor.
Yeah, washed actor. Hashtag washed actor.
Fraud.
Oh, man. It's quite mad as well because obviously I didn't ask anyone on the programme I'm working on whether I could do this. You know, I just did it in my trailer in my spare time. But obviously now they've had like millions of views. I wonder if they're a bit like, oh, we paid for that makeup or that costume. And technically he's supposed to be like learning his lines and stuff in that time. So yeah. That's that might come back to bite me as well.
You can't put chains on genius, James. On creativity. You just can't. You've got to let the creative people do what they do. And
exactly.
You know.
Andre Arshavin's not going to track back, and that's something you've got to accept.
Andre Arshavin. Wow.
Yeah.
I haven't thought about him in a long time, actually.
No, I know. I think I'm right in saying that he's now doing a bit of coaching with the St. Petersburg, with the Zenit Academy or something like that. which sort of strikes me as slightly strange. Like, I don't really imagine. Do you know what I mean? He's not someone I ever thought, oh, he'll stay in the game. I thought he'd be off having a lovely time, being a fashion designer or something by now.
He did do that, didn't he? Didn't he go to like fashion school or something?
I think he had a degree in it.
Right. Yeah. I'm going to look up his Wikipedia and see what the latest is.
What do they say? Yeah. Any news from Andre?
No, personal life. It's not that current. Like, the last update in his personal life is on 6th of February 2012, Arshavin was officially registered as a proxy for Russian presidential candidate Vladimir Putin. So that's not great.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Well, I liked him as a player. I'll leave it as that. Anyway, the point is you can't contain genius, you know?
That's it.
And that's what he and I have in common, I guess.
There is a contained genius on the way back to Arsenal.
Yes.
Bukayo Saka. Is it fair to call him a genius? I think so.
Yeah. In what respect is he contained?
Well, in that they've shipped him back from the England training camp in a container, yes. They've put some holes in the top of the box for air, and they've sent him back because
he's got all the bits of Bukayo Saka. They swept them all up with the dustpan and brush, put them in a box, and sent them back to Mikel Arteta in a big box that says "sorry" on the top of it.
Yeah, please reassemble at your own leisure.
Oh man, what do we don't really know very much about it at this stage, right?
No, I think we talked about this in the last interlull where I was sitting there one night playing PlayStation or something, and my phone started buzzing, and it was all the Martin Odegaard stuff when he got that injury for Norway. So I've been kind of dreading that again. But the other night I was heading to bed, having an early night, was going to read my book, and I said I'll just flick around on the internet for a minute or two before I go to bed. And then in real time, I just saw it on the Discord, people going, no, Saka, no. I was like, oh, fuck, what's happening here? So I had to go look around, and then I discovered that he had been taken off.
Right.
So I looked for a clip on the internet. I found a clip on the internet.
And what did you see?
I saw him sort of not moving as well as you would expect Bukayo Saka to move, and holding the back of his, looked like he was holding the back of his thigh, the old hamstring, the classic, my hamstring's not great here gesture. And then I saw people talking about, well, he got a collision, he had a bit of a knock in the first half, and maybe it's that, could be a bit of a dead leg. But he's gone back to Arsenal now from the England camp. I saw some quotes from Lee Carsley, who is, of course, the interim England manager and a close personal friend of Mikel Arteta from their time together at Everton. Mm-hmm. And he said something, I'm paraphrasing because I can't find it here. Bukayo, he might have been close for the game today against Finland, but it wouldn't have been fair on him to ask him to do that, so he's gone back. So it doesn't sound too serious. But I'm touching wood as I say that because, I don't want to tempt fate or jinx anything. But it doesn't seem to be too serious. But of course, it's sort of everybody's worst nightmare, isn't it, that Bukayo Saka gets injured?
I think so. I'm just watching the footage now. I mean, he does do the sort of classic hamstring stretch. You know what I mean? Like he kind of kicks his leg up in the air as if to be like, what's going on there at the back of my thigh? But it doesn't look like one of those where it's just gone ping and snapped and, he's going to be out for 3 months or anything like that. We're guessing, but it just looks like a bit of a tweak or a strain. And based on what Lee Carsley said, I think he'd have a chance of being back involved with Arsenal relatively soon. Let's hope so, because he signed off for the international break in fine form.
He certainly did.
A huge loss to not have him for the next few weeks.
He certainly did. Carsley confirms Bukayo Saka, not a serious injury, just did not want to risk taking him to Finland.
Yeah.
Like, does that mean he would have been okay if England had been playing at home? Is there something specific about Finland?
About Finland? What's treacherous about Finland?
What have the Finns got against Bukayo Saka? What's going on? No, I think it could be the travel, couldn't it?
I think the travel, yeah. And just like, a bit of rest, I think England could put him out on the field, but his chance of aggravating that injury would be higher, right? And it wouldn't surprise me if it's very minor, Arsenal take a bit of a precaution with him when he gets back. What's our first game after the break? Bournemouth away next weekend. Wouldn't surprise me if, he starts that one on the bench and we only use him if we need him, kind of thing, just because there are big games coming up in Europe and in the Premier League, and I think Arteta will be desperate to make sure he's available for us.
For sure.
But yeah, it does feel pretty annoying, doesn't it? I mean, last international break, we had the Odegaard thing. We had Calafiori, concern over him. Now Saka, we got basically another round of games to get through before the end of the break. Just keep everything crossed, I suppose.
Everything crossed. In terms of who's in action still, I think we have Declan Rice today for England against Finland. Finland, by the way, who were beaten by Ireland. So it'll be a complete shame. Like a shame on the nation of England if England don't beat Finland today.
Well, England were beaten by Greece at the weekend, weren't they? So I'm not counting any chickens.
Okay.
It's strange. Lee Carsley, I've never seen... I mean, I guess I'll experience this myself after the viral crash and burn that's coming in the next week or so. But after the last international break, Lee Carsley was being lauded as sort of the future of English football. Carsball unlocked.
Carsball.
And now everyone wants him out. It's a hell of a roller coaster being an international manager.
Yeah, it is. So
it seems he wants no part of it, to be fair, from the things he's saying.
What is he saying? I haven't...
He said after the Greece defeat, he was like, hopefully I'll be back with the under-21s soon.
Really?
Yeah, literally.
Wow, okay.
And the journalists in the press conference were like, hopefully you'll be with the 21s. And he was like, yeah.
He doesn't want it.
That certainly seemed to be what he was implying. Whether that is how he truly feels, I don't know. But that's what he was saying.
It opens the door for an emotional return for Gareth Southgate.
Yeah. yeah. Well, it's good news if your name's Graham Potter, I suppose. But apart from that.
Oh, yeah. I've seen him pop up on TV the last couple of weeks just to sort of get himself out there again. Yeah,
he had "Hire Me" written on his forehead, didn't he?
Yeah. And I want the England job on his T-shirt.
Yeah. So, yeah, who knows what will happen there. I mean, Carsley picked a really attacking formation against Greece. Well, it didn't have like a conventional number 9, but it had all the other attacking players in the squad in it. And it didn't work.
I mean, do you think he just kind of went, fuck it, lash them all on there, get all the creative attacking lads on, and sure, it'll be fine?
Kind of. And I suspect as well that it's a bit of a reaction, to the narrative around England in the summer of kind of too conservative. But he wants to pick informed players, and he's got plenty of those in attacking positions, people like Palmer and Saka. I can understand trying to squeeze them all in, Anthony Gordon and others, but didn't work for him, backfired in a big way. And Bukayo Saka got injured. So all in all, it was not a good night.
Yeah. Needs more Emile Heskey, I think, England.
I think Heskey might be the key to unlocking this team.
So what else has been going on? Not a lot.
Not a great deal. I know that David Raya played for Spain.
He did. Played the full 90,
sheet, I believe.
Yeah, against Denmark. They won 1-0 against Denmark, and Mikel Merino, I think he got about half an hour in that game, so that's good.
Oh, that's sort of ideal for us, I think.
Yeah, he didn't start, but he got 30 minutes, and given the fact that he, had a weird preseason after the Euros and then got the injury, these minutes might well be useful for him from an Arsenal perspective.
Definitely. That's one where, I don't mind seeing a player go off in international duty because they're literally trying to regain some match practice and some rhythm. So I think it'll help them. If he'd stayed at Arsenal, he'd be playing probably a behind closed doors game with them.
Yeah.
What else? Trossard versus Calafiori.
Yeah. Trossard scored. Calafiori had to play for an Italy side down to 10 men. So that's not necessarily ideal, but at the same time, given the way things have gone for us this season, perhaps good practice.
Exactly. He might well need that. Seeing if I can see Leandro Trossard's goal.
It's one of those little kind of, where did he come from to poke it in the net finishes.
Very nice. Yeah. Very nice. Well, that's one of the things he does. That's what we like about it.
Yeah. Where did he come from?
He pops up. He pokes things.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds annoying. It is annoying for the opposition, but for us, it's great.
It is.
Saka, Rice, Saliba played for France in a 4-1 win against Israel. And a couple of the Gabbies were in action for Brazil, right?
Yeah, Gabriel played the full 90 for Brazil. I think they beat Chile 2-1. Gabriel Martinelli got on for a few minutes, and they're playing in midweek again. I can't remember who it is they're playing. I'll just look that up now.
I gather that Gabriel was playing... I think they're playing Peru, for what it's worth.
That's right.
I
the
think
Paddington Derby.
That's it. Named as the official man of the match for that 2-1 win.
Very good.
Against Chile. So that is good because he's not been a automatic first choice with Brazil recently, as far as I'm aware.
No, but he's a guy who's kind of at the top of his game, you would have to say.
Well, that's it.
You know,
international managers often want to pick on form, and there can't be many centre-halves in better form than him.
Jakub Kiwior played 45 minutes for Poland, I think. And that's it. We don't have too many players away on international duty this time, perhaps because of injury as well, but it's not like quite as bad.
People who might have gone, I suppose, like Tomiyasu probably hasn't because he's not quite, fully fit. Zinchenko.
Timber.
Didn't Thomas Partey pull out as well?
Yeah, of Ghana, yeah. So we do, it's not quite as action-packed. There was as well, a story during the week about Martin Odegaard that got everybody a bit anxious. Talk of a setback in his recovery, which I'm told is not the case. That he is still on schedule, but we don't know the schedule, do we? We don't know
what schedule. That's it, isn't it?
Yeah. When is the schedule? What is the return date? That is something they are keeping very much under their hats. I understand that. I wrote about this at the weekend, actually, on the blog, about Arteta and his reluctance to share too much in the way of medical information and fitness information, which, I do get. I get that it's frustrating because we want to know. We want to hear Martin Odegaard will be back in 2 weeks, 3 days, 4 hours and 7 minutes and 6 seconds. We want that sort of exact time frame on it, but if they say that, or if they say you'll be back in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and there is it's not an exact science. I know medical is medicine an exact science, or is it an evolving science? I don't know, but there are things that we know and we can do and we can use and all that, but there are other things that you can't control. The human body is strange and weird, so something the injury might heal, but he might tweak something along the way. So if they say 2 weeks and it's actually 4 weeks, people go out of their fucking minds. There's too much drama that surrounds it. So on that basis, I understand why they keep things pretty much in-house.
Yeah, it's interesting that Arsenal have been through kind of different phases on this. There was a period a few years ago, maybe towards the end of Arsene Wenger or start of Unai Emery, where Arsenal were much more explicit about injuries.
Yeah.
There was even a time, do you remember, where they do like a weekly bulletin?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. The injury update or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that was partly driven by the medical staff because they felt that in the absence, in a sort of vacuum of information, they were coming under fire. There was a kind of narrative, I don't remember if you remember at the time, about Arsenal pick up a lot of injuries. Their players seem to have setbacks. They seem to recover more slowly. And so the medical team, I think, pushed to say, well, let's be more open. Let's be more upfront and transparent. And therefore, people won't judge us by incorrect timelines.
Yeah.
But now it's a very different state of affairs where there is this kind of fog of war around Arsenal's injury situation.
Yeah.
And with the Odegaard one, I have to confess, I've not heard anything about a setback myself, but I know it was a pretty bad injury. And Arsenal have been pretty tight-lipped about, exactly how bad, but if it meant he was out for a little while longer than he's been so far, I can't say I'd be surprised.
Yeah, you know the stuff around the team photo where there was a football placed right in front of his ankle. I can reveal that was actually his ankle. It just took on the shape of a football.
It was that shape and size.
It was that shape and size. It was that bad. Yeah, it is obviously a difficult injury. And there was a little update last week, I think, from Arsenal in that they showed him doing some jogging in, the machine they have at the training ground, the Gravitron 2000, whatever it's called. It's like the gravity treadmill. So you stand in it and it creates a sort of... I don't know what the fuck it does. It takes some of the stress off as you're running, right? They use it
exactly, yeah. It's the motion without all of the
load. And the impact and all that kind of stuff. So that was a positive development, and I think it probably is just a little teaser from Arsenal that things are going okay for Martin Odegaard in terms of his recovery, because I don't think they will be posting anything like that if there was a setback or if they're worried or if the rehab wasn't going well, given
they probably cut the video before he falls off that machine, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sort of gets sucked into the elliptical running device.
Yeah. And then, we miss the... that,
Yeah.
But hopefully...
They're saving that for the documentary.
Yeah. Hopefully he's all right. So, what else?
Well, Andrew, that's the question. I mean, it is incredibly quiet. I think we missed Kai Havertz as well as the player who's pulled out of these internationals.
That's true.
Do you read anything into that? Like a number of Arsenal players sort of electing to or signalling that they might not be able to attend this international camp. I think that's a sign of Mikel Arteta and the club
maybe
starting to be a bit more assertive or protective in these situations.
Maybe so. I mean, Arteta was quite clear about this before the international break, and he was asked about, would the club ever do what Alex Ferguson did and just sort of tell Ryan Giggs to stay home. But, Giggs was like Ferguson's pet, so he was able to command him in that way. And Arteta said, look, if the players are fit and healthy to go, they want to play for their countries, we can't realistically tell them, no, you can't go. But I guess it's finding that line between potential injury. Are you, running the risk of aggravating something if you go away, or would you be better off spending those 2 weeks recovering, doing some light training and not risking aggravating an injury? I think that's probably where we are with it, where that measure of common sense is being applied. And I'm sure it's a conversation they have with the players as well, Like, what do you want to achieve this season? Do you want to have a good game against Bosnia and Herzegovina in the October international break, or would you like to be part of a team that's going to win the league? And therefore, the players can make decisions and prioritize things, if they potentially could go and push themselves and go and play, or take the longer view and stick around and hopefully not aggravate or not exacerbate any injury that they might be carrying.
Yeah, it's a really tricky one. And to be honest, I think it's one of the things that outside of football is most poorly understood, that idea of kind of loading and the importance of players continuing to get consistent minutes, the benefit of that versus rest. I have to put my hands up and say, like, it's just not an area that I fully understand. But Arsenal will be monitoring these guys so closely. I think not every player is going to accept what Ryan Giggs accepted when it comes to, telling people you can't go on international duty. A lot of these players, they play for Arsenal partly because they want that recognition. It's one of their aspirations, one of their motivating factors. Bukayo Saka wants to play for England. That's the reality of it. As much as we might prefer that he stays at home, that's not how he sees it. So it's a really tricky one. But I think the way we've dealt with this international break, or the way the players have dealt with it, maybe if it's their own initiative, is eminently sensible. because it is an awkwardly timed one as well, coming at the start of what's a really frenetic run into the new year.
Yeah, well, there is another international break next month though as well.
Good. Well, let's not forget about that.
Yeah, let's not, because we all love these international breaks so much. I know this is probably something that Tim and Jamie will cover in a bit more detail. Actually, I know they will cover it in a lot more detail in the Arsenal Women Arsecast this week. But obviously, it hasn't been a good week for Arsenal women. It hasn't been a good week for Jonas Eidevall either. Pressure is mounting on him. Defeat yesterday to Chelsea in the WSL. A very difficult defeat in midweek to Bayern Munich 5-2, and then a draw last weekend against Everton. It does feel like he's going to really struggle based on the comments I've seen online and on the website and stuff like that. Faith in him has dwindled significantly, I think. So it's not been a good week.
I can answer you though. Somebody yawn. One sec. Okay. Yeah, someone brought to my attention last night, actually, a big piece of graffiti opposite the Emirates Stadium. Have you seen this?
No.
Oh, right. So, out on the sort of armoury side of Emirates Stadium, there's that tunnel.
The bridge.
Of North Banksy artwork. And there's a big piece of graffiti just at the entrance to that tunnel that says Jonas out in big white letters.
Does it have the hashtag symbol in front of it? Because it doesn't count otherwise.
I'm not sure, actually. Can't comment on that. Hopefully it does, because as you say, it only counts with the hashtag. It does seem like he's in a bit of a perilous position. I think he needed a strong start to this season to assuage some of the concerns, some of the doubts, and Arsenal have kind of had anything but that, certainly over the last few games. And it's interesting. Was there a question here? Somebody did ask me something about it. I'm just curious to see how it will play out. Kind of like if it was the men's game, I feel like I'd have quite a clear understanding of like the kind of pressure that he would be coming under and how that would play out online, and what that might mean for him and how it might affect the atmosphere in the ground. And I have to be totally honest and say I don't really know if that will correlate exactly with the women's game, because in my time following the women's game more closely, we haven't really seen a manager under this kind of pressure.
I think another interesting aspect to this, of course, is the fact that games are now being played at the Emirates Stadium. And with that comes an extra pressure, right? Because there are a lot of seats, there are a lot of tickets to sell for the Emirates Stadium. And if... look, I'm not going to say if attendance is dwindled, that'll be that. I mean, he'll be judged by what happens on the pitch, and clearly what's been happening in the last week or so isn't really as good as people would expect. This is terrible English, Jesus Christ. But it's Sunday. It's Sunday morning. People can forgive me. But I do think it adds an extra dimension to it, because you've got sellout crowds for, let's say, a North London derby. 46,000 there yesterday against Chelsea, which is amazing. Still a brilliant crowd.
Fantastic, isn't it? Yeah,
it's an amazing crowd. But people, football fans, kind of vote with their feet, don't they?
Yeah.
So if you're playing at a smaller venue, that's not as apparent as when you've got games happening at Emirates Stadium. And I think that aspect of things is quite interesting. Maybe it's something Tim and Jamie will talk about a bit as well, being far more... I
think so. I mean, they're certainly the experts when it comes to the women's side. But I think that's a great point about the Emirates Stadium. And part of the reason that Arsenal attract crowds of that size is that, they are a club that invest in their women's team, and I think it's important that they are perceived to remain highly competitive if they want to retain and grow those crowds, and so maybe that does create a bit of an imperative around the managerial position. It's it's a tricky one. But yeah, certainly I saw the same as you in terms of the reaction yesterday. A lot of people sort of saying they're unhappy with the way things are going at this point in time.
Yeah, all right. Well, we'll see how that plays out. I think there's a couple of games in the next week or so anyway, and then there's an international break for the women. So we'll see. But, for more on this and much more expert insight and opinion on this, do check out the Arsenal Women Arsecast, which has a new format this season, by the way, which is quite similar to the Arsecast Extra in that they'll have a discussion in part 1 and take listener questions in part 2. So if you've got anything that you'd like to ask, you can find Tim and Jamie in the usual social media places and ask your questions there. There you go.
There's not a lot more to say, really.
There isn't. There isn't.
Graeme Souness upset people, didn't he?
He did. We had a question, actually. I was going to save it for part 2, but you've mentioned it. AFC Rye Pie on the Discord said, "What the fuck is Graeme Souness' problem?" And there might have been one on Threads as well. Let me see if I can find it.
It's about Arsene Wenger, right? He said Arsene Wenger was lucky. Was that what he said?
He said he's lucky and he's not a football man.
Yeah.
He's not a football man, Arsene Wenger, despite being involved in football his entire life, managing more games in the Premier League than almost anyone, winning the double a couple of times, going through a season unbeaten, holding the record for winning the most FA Cups. No manager has won more FA Cups than he has. He has, in many ways been credited with not quite a revolution in the game, but certainly when Arsene Wenger came to Arsenal, there were things. Was it David Squires, who makes those brilliant cartoons for The Guardian? He did one of his early comic strips about Arsenal. I think it was about the Invincibles, and there was a picture of Arsene Wenger, and it just said, "Invented pasta." It's that kind of thing where, the move away from the typically English footballer lifestyle to one that's more aligned with a top-level athlete / sports person, it did create a huge change in the game, And to suggest that Arsene Wenger is not a football man is just obviously complete bollocks. But then, here's the thing. Graeme Souness said this on a podcast created by a betting company who I'm pretty sure have been delighted with the response to what he said, because everyone is sharing the clip going, "Look at this asshole, this old dinosaur Souness, he doesn't know anything," while the clip is being shared millions and millions and millions of times. It's like the most garbage level of content I think you can get,
Yeah.
Betting company podcast, old dude says something fucking controversial because they know there will be a reaction. And listen, I understand why people want to push back against that kind of stuff, because it's patently wrong. It's sort of rooted in prejudice, I think, that we saw some of that when Arsene Wenger took over, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, who does this French guy think he is? What was it? Alex Ferguson said something. Who's this French guy coming from Japan to tell us what to do with our football? That attitude has been prevalent and was always prevalent when Wenger joined Arsenal, and despite what he did and despite what he achieved, I don't think that ever went away. So it's just low rent bollocks from Graeme Souness. And the best thing would be for people to just ignore it. But I do understand why, for want of a better word, it sort of triggered people into reacting, But that's the content cycle.
Yeah. Totally. I think it is grounded in a kind of xenophobia. And I mean, it just reminds me of our conversation last week about Jamie O'Hara.
Oh, no.
By the way, TalkSport did ask me to come on. That I was slagging off Jamie O'Hara, and I guess TalkSport more broadly. They did get in touch and say, "We have actually been trying to get in touch with you to come on the new Arsenal show," which really made me laugh. But who knows?
Who knows?
I won't rule it out. Maybe I'll go on, tell them what I really think.
Yeah, but you got to get a contract. No Jamie O'Hara. Yeah, he can't.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That would be specified for sure.
Yeah.
Hey, look, someone made us a quiz. We have the Critical T player ratings game.
Oh, do we? Cool.
For part 2.
Okay. But
Alessandra Hedgeblog made us a quiz. I thought we could close part 1 with it.
Why not? Let's do it.
So good morning, guys, gals, and non-binary pals. Here's an Interlull quiz. I will pick 3 ex-Arsenal players and give you their stats since leaving the club.
Okay.
So whose stats for this season, 24-25, are these? Played 7 games, scored 1 goal. Is it Matteo Guendouzi, Charlie Patino, or Fabio Vieira?
It's got to be Matteo Guendouzi because Fabio Vieira hasn't scored a goal because he's been out injured, and Charlie Patino hasn't really played for Deportivo La Coruña since he joined. So I'm guessing it's got to be Guendouzi for Lazio.
Someone like that. It is Guendouzi, yeah. Patino has made 1 appearance. I think Vieira's made 2. Neither of them have scored.
Right.
And Guendouzi is indeed at Lazio, where I think Nuno Tavares is absolutely tearing it up.
He was called the king of the assists by the Portuguese media because he's got 5 assists in 5 games, I think.
I've heard he's been genuinely brilliant.
I mean, there is something there with him. There is talent and there is a bit of flair and excitement when he goes forward. I remember when he went to Marseille on loan, and I think he had sorry, I wasn't crying there, it was just a little bit of a cough.
Sure, it was tough.
Anyway, he had a really great start to his Marseille loan. I think he scored 4 or 5 goals or something in the first 5 or 6 games, something like that. So he does have this ability to come out of the blocks quickly,
Absolutely. Yeah, he's doing brilliantly. But anyway, the answer was Guendouzi. Question 2.
Okay.
From 22-23 season to present, whose stats are these? Played 69 league games, scored 46 goals. Wow.
What the fuck?
Is it Alexandre Lacazette, Folarin Balogun, or Olivier Giroud?
So from the start of 22-23 season, 60-something games.
69 league games, 46 goals.
I'm going to say... I don't think Giroud has scored at that level. And I don't think, after his great season on loan, Balogun has been scoring at the same rate. So it's got to be Lacazette.
That's correct. According to... who's the question for? Alessandra Hedgeblog. Yeah, Balogun has played 72 games, scored 31. The vast majority of those in that first season on loan that you mentioned. And Giroud played 76, scored 28.
Yeah, there you go.
Wow, Lacazette's done all right, hasn't he?
Back in Liga.
Yeah. And finally, from season 21-22 to present, whose stats are these? Played 77 games, scored 6. Is it Alex Iwobi, Joe Willock, or Nicola Pepe? Now, Pepe did spend the first of those seasons still at Arsenal.
I'm ruling out Pepe.
Right.
And the other, it's Iwobi or...
Joe Willock. 77 games.
Iwobi.
That one's Joe Willock.
No.
Yeah, Iwobi's played 105 games since then, scoring 10. And Pepe has played 65, scoring 13.
Wow.
Pardon me.
Bless you.
Thanks, man.
What a way to end with a...
Sorry, I'm allergic to Nicola Pepe. I just remembered.
Oh, man. You should have that in your contract as well.
Yeah. Well, there you go. That was a bit of fun. Fountain Hedgeblog. What we've learnt there is we should never have let Lacazette go. He's a goal-scoring sensation.
Sign him up.
Could we bring him back? It's not too late.
Another 50 million. We'll solve all that striker chat immediately. Be brilliant. Okay. Right. We've done it. We've got through part 1. We've got questions and more in part 2 coming up right after this. Welcome back to the Arsecast Extra. This is part 2 of the show where we answer questions that you sent to us on threads at Gunnerblog and at Arseblog. Also on the Arseblog Discord chat server, which you get access to if you are an Arseblog member on Patreon. Here's a question. Comes from Corm_we. Has there been an official Arseblog statement/review on Tim's cheese and onion cob? Speaking of, things going viral, Tim's sandwich.
It blew up.
It blew up in a big way.
Well, you are officially Arseblog. Do you have a position on this?
It didn't look great.
The thing about me is, I do like quite a plain sandwich, right?
In what way? How plain?
Like, I don't like mayonnaise, for example.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So, like, I want butter in my sandwich. Don't get me wrong. I'm not a madman.
Right.
But I don't really want mayonnaise in it. I have mustard or other stuff. But I'm someone who's like, sometimes I'm like, why is there a salad in my sandwich? If I want a ham sandwich, I want a ham sandwich.
You're getting in touch with your French roots, your ham on bear. You just want like ham and butter. Is that it?
Yeah.
Right.
Kind of. In a dream. I mean, maybe mustard as well. Or like a little bit of salad. But like, not like, it feels like you're just packing it with salad to... You could be giving me more ham there.
Sure.
Now, in fairness to Tim's cheese and onion cob, it's very much what it says on the tin. No lies were told, right?
That is true. There was cheese and there was onion. A very, very thick piece of onion by the looks of it.
So there's a but. I just think the quantities are insane. Like the thickness of the cheese and the thickness of the onion. If anything, it just looks awkward to eat.
It looked too big for human consumption.
Yeah. And I'm a big human.
Yeah.
But I still think too big.
Where do you stand on a BLT if you're not mad for a salad in your sandwich?
I will have a BLT. I just don't want any lettuce or tomato in it.
You're just having this. Right. It's now called the Saka special. It's just a B.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm up for trying one of these cheese and onion cobs. Where was it? Was it Leicester?
Leicester, yeah. Yeah.
Home of the cheese and onion cob.
There's your new piece for The Athletic. Investigation into the cheese and onion cob.
Think what Tim has done for the tourism industry around Leicester. Destroyed it completely.
Was it ever there?
I don't know. Yeah, I saw a lot of very confused Americans being like, what's happening here?
Yeah. It was even on some of those crazy Reddit things, like shit English people eat, whatever it's called, okay. That kind of stuff.
Wow. I mean, very funny.
Extremely.
So if I bought you that cob, would you eat it? Or would you be like, that's too thick a piece of onion?
It looked just really dry to me. I'm sorry. It was too dry. It didn't look like there was butter. It looked like there was bread, some onion, and a large amount of onion and a large amount of cheese.
Yeah.
Without sufficient... I like mayonnaise. Put some mayonnaise on it. I'd probably give it a go if I was hungry enough, but I would prefer a better sandwich than that. That's all.
I think there are a lot better sandwiches, but it's piqued my curiosity.
All right. Well, if you ever find yourself in the Leicester vicinity...
Well, Leicester are in the Premier League this season.
Oh, yeah.
So perhaps I will.
Perhaps you will.
That is actually, I mean, you can bank on that. If I end up covering the Leicester game, I'll be trying one of those cobs, all right. For sure.
While doing a dramatic monologue of an early 2000s
Call Me Maybe, or something like that. Something highbrow.
That's too current. I think you got to go back.
Schnurl says, can you pick 3 players from the current squad to defend Bukayo Saka from a rampaging Conor McGregor?
Ugh. Fucking Conor McGregor. Jesus.
On the Emirates turf, no less.
Gabriel.
Yeah. I think he'd be all right on his own.
Yeah, I think so. But, let's get him a little bit of backup. I am going to say, it's obvious to say Saliba. But who else?
I think maybe Ben White. Just to poke him in the eyes or pull his trousers down or whatever was required.
Yeah. He would do that.
Just put him off, essentially. He'll do what he does to the goalkeepers, to Conor McGregor. while Saliba and Gabriel batter him.
See, I wouldn't mind Jorginho in there as well. I think he's a biter. He looks like a biter to me.
He looks like one of those players who's got really sharp elbows. And sharp teeth, maybe.
Maybe. I didn't enjoy that whole thing at all, you know.
No, I'm not sure the club were massively enthused either.
No, I wouldn't have thought so. For all kinds of reasons. Not least, you know, that guy aiming kicks at Bukayo Saka. Just fuck off.
Yeah, not ideal. I mean, who knows? Maybe Saka's... we don't know for sure that the problem he's picked up on England duty didn't all begin with a misplaced kick from Conor McGregor.
Anyway, I don't like talking about that guy, so I'll move on. I've got a question here. But we had questions about, you know, the football calendar and players and things like that. So Chris BK says, not Arsenal specific, but with all the talk about player workloads, I do wonder if anyone at FIFA or UEFA considers the supporters and whether there's a growing football fatigue. Personally, I watch a lot less football generally than I did pre-pandemic. With there being so much of it on throughout the year, missing certain matches feels less important. Do you think there's an oversaturation of football now?
I would say probably not yet, simply because I think the game is expanding to meet demand. I think that's kind of the trajectories still kind of line up. The correlation is still there. Do I think there's a risk of oversaturation? I do, yeah. I do.
It's a bit like the sketch, isn't it? What were they called? Webb and Doohickey. What were the guys?
Oh, Mitchell and Webb.
Mitchell and Webb, yeah.
Oh, yeah, the football's on
all the time. Football. Yeah, it is a bit like that now. I think part of it is just the availability of football from other jurisdictions. Is that the right phrase? Or, you know, it's easier to watch or find a channel on your Skybox or your Dodgy Box or whatever you've got, you know, your streaming service, your IPTV, whatever it is. You can find football from all over the world really, really easily, you know. So maybe it feels like there's more football than there was or is, but it's just more available to us, you know. You know, the way, like, before the internet, we knew there were crazy people in the world.
We did know, yeah.
But we didn't have as much exposure to them. And now they're everywhere. And you think, God, there's so many fucking crazy people. But there's probably just the same amount of crazy people. We're just a bit more exposed to those crazy people.
100%.
So on a serious level, though, I do think, you know, there will be a saturation point, or we'll get there. It might have got, you know, everyone's opinion on this is a little bit different, but I think we're close. You know, it just never seems to stop between summer tournaments, preseason tours, you know, the long Premier League season punctuated by international breaks. There is no respite from football, and you know, we're sitting here doing a fucking podcast in an international break on a Sunday. You know, we're part of the machine, if you like. We're maybe part of the problem is, you know, putting a little, maybe doing ourselves down a little bit. But I think it is simply, as you said at the start, part of the demand that people have, not just for the game, but for everything else that goes on around the game. You know, content, analysis, podcasts, whatever it is, that appetite is there in a big, big way. So, yeah, here we are on a Sunday doing a podcast.
But do you think there will be a tipping point?
Well, are they going to invent like another few days of the week? Because there's surely only so much that they can actually do. I know they're introducing this like FIFA Club World Cup, which is, you know, who cares? Nobody cares, but that's being invented, and that will, I guess, end up on the telly somewhere, and people will probably watch that, you know. But there are only so many days in the week, and there are only so many games that the top players can play as well. You know, there is a limit, surely, to how much you can ask of them. Or there's two things, right? One is that, as Arteta has spoken about a little bit, and I think his position on this is really interesting when he's asked if there's too much football or if the demands are too much on the players. His response has been not to stop the amount of football, but to say we need bigger squads.
Yeah.
Right? And that's one way. The other thing is maybe you reassess the duration of a player's career.
Wow.
Right? That if you are going to ask them to play 60 to 70 games every season, maybe the lifespan of a top flight footballer is shortened in a significant way, no?
That's a really interesting point that I hadn't necessarily considered. So you think this generation of players, we might see them retire somewhat earlier?
Maybe.
Financially, they'll certainly be able to.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
But they would be walking away from vast amounts of money as well.
Yeah, I guess. But, the sensible ones will be more than able to, to live the rest of their life based on what they've earned in, a year or two. Yeah. The very top players, I mean,
Yeah.
And it's the very top players who are asked to do more than most, because they play domestic, they play Europe, they play internationals. They tend to go relatively far in these tournaments and stuff like that. So it is the very top players who play for their clubs and their countries who will be the ones who, earn the most, but whose the physical demands placed on them are higher than everybody else.
Yeah. I'd be very curious to see if we ever arrive at that place where interest does start to diminish. I don't think it'll sort of disappear or drop off or anything like that, but it does feel like they are squeezing the lemon for all it's worth.
Yes. Did we talk about this already? Did you see the story about how they're going to do like halftime interviews?
Yeah. We haven't spoken about it.
Yeah.
But someone, Painey992 on Discord said, "Good morning, chaps. What are your thoughts on this halftime interview nonsense?" So what is it? So there's one of three things that a team has to do. Is that right?
I guess so. Do you know what they are? There's like a halftime interview with a player or
halftime interviews with players or is it with a manager? Here we go. Major new broadcasting changes. Halftime interviews with a player or coach could be introduced. Interviews with players who've been subbed off and broadcast inside the dressing room will also be added to programming. Reports claim that clubs must choose one of the three options for each Premier League game.
Who wants this? Broadcasters.
Broadcasters is the short answer, yeah.
Broadcasters want it, but I'm not even sure that there's an appetite for that among the viewing public. Like, I think if we're talking about saturation points and things like that, you know what? I think the sanctity of the dressing room should be respected. Maybe that's an old school, old guy yelling at a cloud kind of viewpoint, but I absolutely do. I don't think cameras should be invited into a dressing room. If you want to make a documentary, you want to release it, fine. But live cameras in a dressing room, we don't need to pull back the curtain that far. There's really no need for it. Nobody needs to see it. I don't think you get a natural view of what's going on in there. And I think it's kind of unfair on the players and the managers as well. Whether it's pre-game, halftime, or after the game, they should be able to come off the pitch where they've been playing in front of 60,000 people in a stadium, in front of a worldwide audience of millions, perhaps billions of people. They should be able to come off the pitch after giving everything they've got, through the 90 minutes or whatever it is, and just come back to the dressing room and not have a fucking camera and some fucking idiot asking them a stupid question, while they just relax. They've gone out there, they've done their work, and they should be able to have I don't want to say like a safe space, but nobody cares. Nobody wants that. I really fail to see what value it brings to the game and to coverage of the game, because all that will happen is the media training will ramp up. Nobody's going to say anything. They'll be told, don't say anything controversial. If there's a halftime interview, like Mikel Arteta is cornered or has to do a halftime interview in a game where there's been like a contentious decision in the first half, right? Let's say one of our players gets sent off for delaying the restart again.
Yeah.
Right. What do they think Mikel Arteta is going to say? Nothing. Like literally Nothing. Yeah. I don't have an opinion on that. I haven't seen it back. I'll have to watch it later, because that's just the obvious thing to say, because you don't give them any fuel or anything like that. So all we're going to get is just crap. It's crap.
Yeah, I totally take your point about the sanctity of the dressing room, and I agree. But I think I feel even more strongly about the sanctity of the 90 minutes.
Yeah.
That for those 90 minutes, and I include half time in that, so those players and the coaches are absolutely focused on the competition. I think that's what makes it as dramatic and as much of a spectacle as it is. I think asking them to perform media duties between the first whistle and the final whistle is absolutely absurd. And I also think people will be sort of staggered to find, and they shouldn't be, but they might be, that an athlete who's just run 10K on a football pitch might not be in a position to give the best interview of his life 20 seconds later, you know?
Is it potentially detrimental to... Look, I think players can focus, but like, are you taking away something from a player's ability to, at halftime, you come inside, you want to just sort of have a drink, relax, get a whatever, rub down or whatever before you go out, but you're being asked to sort of perform a media duty that most players, I think, are relatively okay with doing after the final whistle. But at halftime, I don't know. There's no.
That's what I mean. Like, the game itself should be sacred, and before you know it, we'll have TNT interviewers running on the pitch to speak to the right back.
Yeah.
While the ball's at the other end.
How do we as fans, if that is introduced, and people don't like it and don't care for it and don't want it, how do we as fans, as football fans, make that clear to the broadcasters? Because things have been introduced in the past, haven't they? And then they sort of go away because they turn out to be not popular. How can we make this as unpopular as it needs to be?
I don't know, because I imagine it will be quite unpopular. Like, let's say you're watching the broadcast of an Arsenal game and they're playing, I don't know, whichever team it is, and then Neil Maupay comes off and they're like, we're going to actually minimise the in-game action now, so the screen is filled predominantly with Neil Maupay talking. Like, people are just going to want to watch the game, aren't they?
Yes, of course. Of course.
And maybe they'll use kind of, red button technology, and it'll all be optional. There's not really much we can do apart from sort of
write a strongly worded letter.
Yeah. Or like not subscribe, I guess. But that leaves you with, if you're in the UK, fairly limited options for how to see games that don't involve breaking the law. So, yeah, it's a bit of a nightmare. I cannot see Mikel Arteta giving halftime interviews. I have to be honest about that. I just think, no way is he doing that. And if he is, like you say, it'll be the most perfunctory thing.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that there will have been managers who are opposed to this idea, because they want to get their players back in the dressing room. They don't want to talk to the media at halftime. They talk to them pre-game. They talk to them post-game. There's a press conference, but then, there are all kinds of media duties to be carried out afterwards with all the various rights holders to the Premier League. So it's not just Mikel Arteta, for example, who does post-game interview with Sky, post-game interview with BBC for Match of the Day, post-game press conference. You've got various players doing post-game interviews as well. Ben White talking to Jan-Åge Fjørtoft in a hilarious way for whoever it is that he works for. All of these things go on anyway. I just really struggle to see what the benefit of this is to the coverage of the game.
Well, here's a question about another fun aspect of contemporary football.
Okay.
Freddie Jung, just got the Jung at the start of Ljungberg in his Discord name. Freddie Jung says, do we need to get a diploma in law to follow Arsenal/football now? Just curious, because I like sport, but dread dealing with the legal industry.
Yeah.
I guess this is related to, not sure we've spoken, you and I, since the Manchester City ruling was announced. Not the 115 charges, the one about...
No, the other one, associated
party transactions.
Yeah. Like I mean, I talked to Philippe about this on the Arsecast on Friday, so if people haven't listened, they can go back and listen there.
Philippe's very good on all this.
He is. He's great on it, and his contempt for Manchester City shone through in that particular episode, so I'm appreciative of that. Yeah, I mean, there is that. You know, it's part of a strategy, I think, for Manchester City to challenge everything as a response, I think, to the 115 charges. It is part of that. I am absolutely convinced. But more and more, it's just part of the game and part of how sport operates. And when very rich people don't get what they want, they usually resort to legal means to sort that shit out. And it's kind of depressing, really, to be honest. It leaves me very cold. You know, there are things about football which are the football business, for example. The financial side of things, right? Where you have people like Swiss Ramble, Kieran, who does incredible work and incredibly detailed work on finances within the game, specific clubs, right? And my admiration for what he does and how he does it is in part because I'm not a numbers guy, but you understand that aspect of the game, and it's necessary because football is a business. And you know, breaking it down very simply, if you make more money, you can spend more money, you can improve your team and all those kinds of things, right?
Yeah.
But as a sort of an area, it's not my area of expertise, and it sort of leaves me a bit cold, but I understand why it's there. The legal aspect of it, much different, I think, you know, and no disrespect to any of our law-talking chums out there who listen to this podcast, but the way it has crept into the game, and I don't think it's healthy at all, do you?
No, but I think it's a reality. And I think it is a sort of, is it fascinating? I was going to call it fascinating.
I don't think it's fascinating. I find it, again, that leaves me, what I should have said was that leaves me like super cold. The legalities of, you know, having to read a 170-something page document to find out that Manchester City actually didn't win the case, even though it was reported as such. You know, they won a couple of small little concessions from the rules. You know, that side of things where it's not reported properly, I think, is the big issue. You know?
Well, it's just briefing wars, isn't it? I mean, the people I trust told me basically it was kind of a draw. Both sides, you know, won and lost on different counts, and it all came down to who briefed the most journalists most effectively, most quickly, in terms of how it would be spun. And City did pretty well on that front. But I think, where I was going with it is that I think it's a sort of interesting accompaniment to this season that there is this kind of legal undercurrent there. I wish there wasn't, but I think law is increasingly prominent in Premier League, and actually Arsenal were kind of no different in some respects. You know, our vice chairman Tim Lewis is a lawyer. Our managing director Richard Garlick is a lawyer. You know, the club is run in part by people of a legal background, and I think that's really interesting when you consider the way that kind of parallels the on-field rivalry between Arsenal and City.
I mean, do you think it's, you know, a consequence, for example, of rules around finances and
I think so.
What's the main rule? The one that nobody paid attention to?
Profit and sustainability.
Yeah, profit and sustainability, around, but like
sponsorships, basically.
Yeah, not that, but sort of the overall financial fair play. It sort of stemmed from that. And in order to, I suppose the thing is, right, when rules get put in place, people will say, okay, these are the rules. We have to abide by these rules. But, rules can be a little bit bent here and there, or you can find, I was going to say wormholes. That's not the right word. Loopholes. A wormhole in the financial fair play rules, and we've all been transported into a different universe. But, those loopholes, and then when loopholes get exploited, they have to modify the rules again. Therefore, a better understanding of the law and the legalities of everything, it becomes absolutely necessary.
I think so, yeah. Probably that precipitated all this. As soon as you introduced laws, you inadvertently created loopholes. And people are going to try and find those and exploit them in different ways. But yeah, it's a bit... I do think it kind of detracts from the drama of the Premier League that this season's title could very well be decided in a hearing.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to our January signing when we bring in Lionel Hutz on loan.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that's what's required.
Maybe so.
What else I got here? Oh, Gabby Goal says, I just learned this week that Riccardo Calafiori is younger than Gabriel Martinelli, which blew my mind.
Why?
He plays and is discussed like a 27-year-old veteran. Do you think Calafiori's youth and development is an under-discussed aspect of the player?
Well, I don't know. I never thought about it. It didn't seem strange to me.
I see. I understand that question. I think it is quite surprising that he's as young as that. I know it's a fact, and we were all given the facts.
But that's it. Like when we first became interested in him, I looked at his Wikipedia page and saw he's 22. And basically everything I've learned about him since then has been built on the platform of knowing that he was 22.
Well, it's not like he looks particularly old, but I have fallen into the same trap where I think maybe because he's arrived as kind of an established international, I was like, yeah, he's 24, 25, 26. Yeah. It's crept up in my mind.
Your short-term memory is terrible.
Also, obviously. Gabriel Martinelli's getting older.
That's kind of what
That's how time works.
That's it. It's linear.
So I've been learning about that mainly.
Well, I don't want to get into a big age-related discussion involving Arsenal players because that doesn't end well.
He's 22 until he's 23, right?
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. Before we do the player ratings thing...
we will do that.
Here's a question that would be probably more aligned with a waffle episode, which we will have for people this week over on Discord, a waffle where we talk about anything and everything except Arsenal, a bit like this episode. John Foster says... I don't think I've heard anyone ask this before, so I thought I should step up. How do you eat sweet corn? Horizontally from one end to the other, or by rotating the sweet corn until you've cleared a section, then moving along, rotating and clearing it again until it's done. So are you a rotator, or are you like a typewriter going ding, 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 ding?
So I have a very clear answer to this, but I think I should give it second. What's your method?
I'm a rotator.
So I'll start sweet corn.
Start on the left.
You're working your way around it 360 degrees.
Yeah.
And then you're moving along.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. You
don't eat sweet corn. Is that your answer?
No, I like sweet corn.
Okay, all right.
I don't want it in my sandwich, but I do like sweet corn. But my long-time listeners may know that some of my front teeth aren't real anymore. And basically, for me, gnawing on a sweet corn feels a bit high risk.
Okay.
So what do? I use a knife and slice off the corn from the cob and then eat it.
Oh, you're gone again.
I'm back.
You're back.
You hear?
You slice it off with a knife, and that was as far as we got.
Yeah, I slice it off with a knife and eat it conventionally with a knife and fork after that point.
Well, is that not just a really difficult way to eat sweet corn when you could just go down to the supermarket, get a tin of, what's his name? The Gentle Giant? Jolly Green Giant?
Giant Uncle Ben or whatever it is. Yeah. Jolly Green Ben. Yeah, Jolly Green
Ben White Giant.
Yeah.
And just get a tin of sweet corn and just put it in a saucepan and heat it up that way.
Yes, so that's true, actually. That's true, and I'll certainly raise that with people in future. But I'm talking about scenarios where I'm presented with a corn on the cob, and I'm like, because honestly, like I ate one the other day, probably about a few months ago now, and I used my teeth, and my teeth hurt afterwards for about 3 days.
Oh, no.
I thought those days are gone for me.
Those days are gone. No toffee apples for James.
No, it's sad, really. Yeah. I don't bite into apples either. This is pure waffle content.
It sure is.
I have to cut apples up now.
I'm not a fan of apples, really.
What?
I like apple pie, for example, but an apple as a fruit, it's not for me. Not for me. Wow. I'm sorry.
All types of apples.
Yeah, all of them. Pink ladies, green goblins, all of them.
I love a pink lady.
Granny Smith.
Yeah.
There's something about the skin, like the internal apple bit I like. I'm not just the skin. No.
I always thought a toffee apple was kind of a weird treat. Like, I remember being bought them as a kid. And I was always like, I think I just used to sort of eat the toffee off.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's just like not a container because the toffee's on the outside, but a receptacle for a stick of toffee, I guess.
Halloween coming up. Have you ever done apple bobbing?
I'm sure I have when I was young, but not recently. Not recently.
I don't know if I'd be able to, of course, with my teeth. I'd have to hold a fork in my mouth.
That seems like probably more danger.
And attempt to use that to harpoon the apples.
Could you not, like, get a forehead or a fork stuck to your forehead? And just
that might be good, actually.
You know.
Yeah, the metal in my mouth maybe is a bit problematic.
Probably is.
Right. Should we do the Critical Tea ratings game?
Let's do it. It's a tradition at this point.
For the 5 of you who are still here, you've come this far, and this is your reward.
We thank you for it.
Thank you for it. One more ad break still to come, so hang in there. Right, Critical Tea. Player ratings game. No specific period of time. Good luck.
Oh, God. Okay. This is going to be tough.
Rating 1, 9 out of 10. 2 assists and a brilliant goal on his return to his former club. After 2 defeats against this season, he'll have enjoyed this one.
Right. 2 assists and a goal.
Brilliant goal against his former club.
Who did we sign that used to play for another club? I'm completely at a loss here.
I can't think of anyone.
Me either. We just invent these players out of nowhere. 2 assists and a goal against his former club. I'm going to say Kai Havertz.
Okay. That's a decent shout. I'm going to say...
God, did he not score 2 goals, though, against Chelsea? Was it 2 assists and a goal or 2 goals and an assist?
2 assists and a brilliant goal.
I think I'm wrong, but I'll stick with Havertz.
I'm sort of thinking it's got to be someone we've signed from someone in the Premier League, which Havertz would fit the bill. I've genuinely got no idea. I'm going to say Trossard, just like on a whim. It's Declan Rice. Of course. At West Ham last season, 6-0.
Gosh.
They'll be screaming at us, both the listeners now.
Yeah.
Screaming.
Both.
Okay. Rating number 2.
Yeah.
5 out of 10. The misplaced pass at the end will colour people's view of his performance. Other than that, it wasn't really bad, but he's a guy short on confidence and it shows. Makes you wonder if it's gone past the point of no return. But with Gibbs out, he's our left back until something is done in the transfer window today. mindlessly abusing him on Twitter won't help anyone.
That's got to be Andre Santos.
It's got to be Andre Santos.
Got to be Andre Santos.
Do you remember a game?
The only game I can really remember him playing is that game against Chelsea, where he was so bad in the first half.
And so good
I was surprised he came out, and then he scored a goal within a few minutes of the second half starting. And
well, I would say this isn't that game, because I think this game, I don't know who it's against, but I remember when it was. I think it was end of January, and we went out on this day after the game and bought Nacho Monreal.
Oh.
Yeah.
Right.
And that was kind of the end of Andre Santos. So it is Andre Santos. And I can't remember who the game was against, but I'm going to guess it was Swansea or something. I don't know. But let's see.
Okay.
It was Liverpool at home, 2-2 in the Premier League in 2012-13.
Right. And then we went and got Nacho from Malaga.
Yeah. We'd wanted him summer before, I think, and Malaga kept buying players that we liked. Is that right? They bought Cazorla and...
That's right, yeah, and Monreal.
Yeah, we came from behind. It was the 30th of January 2013. We rescued a point. Yes. Luis Suarez and Jordan Henderson took full advantage of an Arsenal defensive display that plumbed the depths.
Oof.
Must have been a fun time.
Yes.
Okay. Rating 3, 6 out of 10. Not quite his usual self, I thought. Allowed Shamak, too much space in the first half. And had that been a player who was actually in any way good at football, it would have been punished.
So obviously Shamak he went to Watford or West Ham?
Palace, I think.
Palace, right. So I'm going to say Lauren Koscielny.
You've got that right, Andrew.
Wow.
A 2-0 in 2013-14.
Okay.
There
we go. Did all right.
Here we go. Number 4 out of 10. Hauled off after about 30 minutes, but the substitution was surely about how he reacted to things going wrong. Didn't track back, etc.
Nuno Tavares against Nottingham Forest in the FA Cup.
You've got that right.
Yeah, because that's the only time I can remember a first half sub being made.
A true hauling. And then finally, 6 out of 10. He did put in a good shift, but it seemed odd to put him on ahead of Pepe. I think that might be Willian.
I think you could be right. We'll put him on ahead of Pepe. Yeah, I'll go with your Willian guess.
It's wrong.
Okay.
The answer is...
Reece Nelson?
No.
Bukayo Saka.
Bukayo Saka.
Right.
From the 2019-20 season, Arsenal won, Wolves won. 5 games before Unai Emery was sacked. Bukayo Saka ascended above Nicola Pepe in the pecking order.
And has pretty much stayed there ever since, it has to be said.
Pretty much.
Okay, well, to the one of you who's left, we're probably in minus numbers now at this point. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you again to Critical T on our Discord for putting that player ratings game together. We will have a Waffle podcast for you, I think, on Tuesday.
Tuesday.
So stand by for that, and stand by for the call for your Waffle questions again over on Discord. If you want to join us there, it's patreon.com/Arseblog. Another week of the Interlull awaits us all. So bide your time. We'll get some football back sooner rather than later. For now, though, take it easy. Thanks for being here, and we will catch you on the next one.
Bye-bye.